the Hoosier Triplets, a trio of Indiana authors road tripping through the romance genre and sharing what we love and learn. Welcome to our podcast.
Wit, whimsy, and where the hell are we? Welcome back to Chatting with the Hoosier Trips. Today, we're gonna don't yuck her yums.
Hi, I'm Ava. I'm very yummy.
I'm Cindy Tanner. I write romance with an edge.
I'm M. Jane or Melanie Jane, and I'm the teller of tales of the Novus Pack, and I'm a yuck, I guess. I'm the downer. Well, maybe I've yucked a lot in my years.
I think you've probably also yummed a lot.
Yeah. Okay, well, Miss Cuvée.
Yes.
I know in our last episode you were talking about the pressing on the back door. You thought you were going to be like so scandalous there. Is that a yum that you think?
Okay, so I think that the concept is that everybody has a different things that they like sexually, and then that translates into things that they like to read in romance, and maybe we're not always talking about in a sexual manner, but I read a lot, and I read like I have a lot of yums in my romance reading that would not translate into my personal life. Mm-hmm. I think, first of all, I'm not that flexible personally.
But do you ever get like distracted, like when reading sex scenes or sometimes even writing them, when you're trying to be like, how is that even, like, even if I was a gymnast, I don't think my leg would really bend that way.
Do not make me tell the story about the dog.
Yeah.
Do not. Hildy McQueen was never gotten over that.
Well, I know. We are talking about, open-mindedness and not yucking someone's yum. Some people might like those things.
It worked. Because I count like how many arms. Okay, so I have mastiffs as my dogs, and they are long, like 6 feet long in length, and they're big. They're human size. And sometimes, yes, when I need to figure out what goes where or how can things go where, I used to lie down on the floor with my dog Buster Brown, and he was fixed, so just calm your jets. And I would wrap myself around him or lift a leg up and see like what position would this do to me, and would it grant greater access. And I told a story once, and I told it like from the heart, like, this is how I do it. And the other authors in the room were scandalized that I would share that. And it's like, yeah, well, I pretty much am honest. Just ask me.
Well, I know that some authors use like the art dolls. Mm-hmm. I actually used my husband once because I wanted to, just once though.
As opposed to the yard boy.
But and I don't have dogs, I only have cats, that doesn't work. But I wanted to see where his head would reach if he were on his knees, because I thought it would be conveniently lower, and it wasn't. So I had to rewrite that particular scene because I'm like, I don't take into account. And sometimes I have to, it's hard to visualize it, because I read one once where like, and he leaned forward and was, right at hip level when he was sitting on the couch. And I'm just like, yeah, apparently, my shortness, like, no, you'd be like shoulder level to me at that point, but he was much lower on the character because the character was taller. So like, I have a hard time like, no, that would never happen. Oh, well, no, it wouldn't happen to me because I'm short, but the character isn't necessarily short. So
do you write female characters that are petite in height, short in height, because that's what you know best?
Not always. I try and vary my characters.
Because I got to tell you, one of my, like, the thing that, like, makes me pause is when you have, like, the petite pixie with the 6'5" bruiser of the guy, that has linebacker shoulders that weighs 300. I'm always like, I know that works, because in 7th grade, Jamie Jean told me it's all the same when you lie down.
But it can't be. I mean, if you're like staring at his sternum when he's on top of you, and I did have I knew a couple who had that disparity, and I so wanted to ask them how it worked. I didn't, but I wanted to, because I'm like looking at you, if I'm trying to do my then are you always on top? Like, if he's on top of you, what are you, what's smashing your face?
I want to yuck your yum right now, because as open as I want to be about all romance and sex, and I know that I'm here as a product of sex, that is very much my parents, where my mom, 5 foot, very, very petite. My dad was a linebacker and 6'3". So I don't want to think about that.
It works.
Yeah, apparently it does
Cindy
work.
doesn't want to think about her parents having sex.
Yeah, it was immaculate conception. I don't know.
She was on top.
Oh God, don't put that in there.
So what is like the maybe the craziest or the wildest scene you've ever read or written, Melanie?
I know it has to be like a Novus scene.
See, I don't know, because I don't think of Novus scenes as being, I think they're hot. But I don't necessarily, I don't push the envelope. I mean, I haven't created anything new you know.
Okay, I don't think any of us are creating anything new.
No, I'm reinventing the wheel.
Well, no, but I guess I don't, like, when I think of like hot, sexy writers, I don't ever think of myself. I mean, I guess I have sex. There's loving sex. There's brutal sex. There's brutalized.
There's the chasing in the living room over the couch where the two girls go at it.
Oh, well, I forgot about that.
Saying.
Yeah, there is. And I should probably do more at female. Okay, good talk.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about that. I don't know, even to think about reading. That's a hard one, the Yuck, the Yum.
Well, I know one of the Yuck, the Yums is when I can't figure out how they can do that and not have like 3 other arms, or in the reverse harem, especially if there's a lot of interaction. Mm-hmm. I'm like, where is his body? I mean, is he like floating in the air? Because he's laying on if you have 8 guys on one girl,
it's a magical penis.
Yeah, but I have to be honest. I always have a problem with the male, female, male, because I just cannot believe that 3 hot people getting it on, the 2 guys are in some way going to find each other attractive. I'm not saying there has to be penal insertion.
It's going to be balls rubbing at the very least.
Yeah, and it should feel good because you're feeling good. And I've always had issues in the books, and especially like back 2015 before, where it was always very delineated. He was at the top and the other was at the bottom, and they, then no one crossed the ribs. I never understood that.
You got Switzerland, no man's land.
Yeah,
right here.
no man's land. Yep. I never understood that. I always just thought it's a free for all, or maybe I'm not talking about college.
I've read some scenes where they haven't bothered me. I think maybe they haven't been as hot as I think other people, to me, as I think other people have found them. And I think the big one for me is when it gets into like punishment, as in terms of like, oh, I'm gonna punish you for doing something, and that's gonna turn into something sensual and hot, and I'm like, yeah, not really feeling it. But I don't know that it's necessarily the actual sex itself, or it's the emotion that I bring into that scene that I'm like, yeah, no, like as a reader, I'm not feeling it. So, but I'm not, I don't think I ever like, oh, well, that's gross or that's disgusting. It's just like, it's not for me now at this point in the story.
I always cringe when they don't use lube for anal. Always cringe. I'm always like, why?
I always just assume it's one of those, you don't have to like over explain. Oh God, no, that is my yuck. Ugh, spitting is not like and that's just because I don't know why that would be triggering for me. No one has spit on me in real life, but I would want to throw hands in no matter what situation.
Well, I mean, I get it. Like, okay, true confession, I don't like watching it in porn, and I make fun of it. Like, oh, like that's so sexy. Because when you're spitting, especially if you're spitting at or towards somebody, that's usually an insult. An insult, not an insult, but yeah.
Well, yeah, grab the lube. I mean, if it needs some more.
Okay, so
or be more subtle.
I'm not so upset when they're like spitting to use in place of lube, and it's more of a raw animal, beastie, wild sex scene. Okay, feral. Let's say they go feral.
I don't know if you're allowed to tell the dog story and then mention bestiality or beastie in the same.
They go savage.
No animals have ever been hurt in plotting out my books. But my total, like one of my drop deads, I think is the spitting in the mouth to demean the woman. I mean, to me, that makes me want to hurl just thinking about it. And one of my favorite dark authors in one of her early books had that, and it was to demean the female character. And like I stopped and I put the book down and like really did like a self-check, like why does this bother me? It's a book, but also like, where's my moral compass on this? Is this like a stopper for me? Because I think it's okay if people say I can't read it, I can't take it, and I continued reading the book. But I that for me still stands out years later. The spitting in the mouth.
And I think the demeaning of the female, I think, is probably what kind of makes me not in the mood when I'm reading a scene like that. And it's funny how I'm okay when it's male. And I'm okay with like the spitting in the mouth and the things like that when it's male. But when there's a woman involved and there's that sort of demeaning attitude toward her, yeah, like my ladywood goes down and I'm not into the scene anymore. And I think maybe that's what is happening to me because then it becomes more personal. I can't pull myself out and just be in the moment with the characters. It's a demeaning thing toward me personally. So yeah.
But you can also, and I think we all can, still appreciate the book, the author, like the work that's gone into it without thinking something personally negative. Yeah. Because I mean that is something that other people enjoy. I do like to read some like dark and BDSM books, and I don't mind like, when the woman is the submissive, but the demeaning part to me is, and I'm, that's a trigger. That's a me thing. That's not, and everyone, and I do think it's interesting because I don't know if either of you have read Den of Vipers, but that was a book that TikTok made me read, and I really enjoyed it. And I have a friend that usually loves everything that I like to read, and she could not stand it because she found it like too demeaning.
Who wrote that?
I should know, but I don't remember the author's name.
I think I don't.
It's well, I mean, because it is a reverse harem, and you've got like some mafia, and there are a few like scenes, and then you've got Diesel. But I mean, it's you kind of take it in a way, and I've actually, that's one of the books that I have reread, but I was surprised that someone like disliked it so much when I like, and we usually have such similar tastes in books, but it just goes to show that like no two readers read the same book, just like no two authors would write the same story given like all of the same details and prompts.
Well, and I think you hit on that. I mean, we're talking about things that are kind of our own icks, but if I'm reading it, I still like I'm able to separate that particular scene or what the author, and I don't like go, it doesn't become a did not finish. It's not necessary. I don't like, that author's awful. That's a horrible author, because there's so much else that I judge an author by. I just know not for me. But obviously somebody's reading it, and if it's for them, you do you. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and when you see the author across the room, you run over there and yell woodshed at Alta Hensley and shout out to Alta,
Or you go tell the author that you masturbated to their scene.
I thought it was a great compliment. I thought it was a compliment. If somebody tells me that, I'm totally...
Since you told that story, I've like tried to mentally prepare myself. So if anyone comes up to me like that, and I don't think I write steamy enough to do that, and I'm like, I would buffer. I would be like, I hope you enjoyed it. Like, I don't know. Like, have an O on me. Like, yeah.
And see, the next one that comes to me and tells me, I'm going to be like, one moment, let me start taking notes. What were you doing? Where were you? What were you wearing? What was playing in the background? I'll use it in another book.
Did you go in circles or back and forth?
I was going to say, have you bookmarked it? Is that like your go-to spank thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to be in somebody's spank bank. I mean, not me personally, my books.
Or you. I'll take it me. I'll be happy. Got no problem. But yeah, I think that right now with all the indie publishing, it has given most readers the ability to find what they like, explore things that traditional would never have allowed us to explore, and that's why I love it, and I love being part of the movement. Is that now anything goes.
I think romance is a genre, and maybe like you said, even more so on indie, it is just like the vastness that is out there. Because there are so many, I didn't realize, that like Amish has, the subgenre of romance, and then all of the different types of shifters. And I mean, and some people they look at, and it like what is it, duck and rabbit? But I mean, it's cool. And why not? Why wouldn't you have someone that could turn into a duck? And why does that make? It's like imagination. It's cool. Like anything goes, as long as you have like you're happy for now or happily ever after. And most people in life are looking for their happy or they're happy for now. So why that is so criticized is kind of maddening.
And I love, as a reader, I love the fact that I'm not pigeonholed by what the traditional publishers want to publish.
Yeah, you're not getting kicked out for that backdoor thumbing.
Yeah, right. I'm not getting kicked out for my backdoor. Thumb on the back door, pushing the envelope. Oh my gosh, I'm so out there.
They're gonna come with pitchforks.
I know, right? But I also, as a reader, I have read so many books that I wouldn't ever have dreamed of reading, and there's so many that I love. So it's just, I believe that, there's nothing wrong with more information. Like my kids, watch YouTube and they know more about sex than I ever did at their age. And I think that's great. Like, I don't think there's ever a bad thing. So being able to read about such a wide variety of, sex and relationships and, love that I neven would have been able to if it had only, before indie became a thing. I think that's great. I don't ever think that there's anything wrong with that.
Well, and I don't know if we were discussing this on air or not, but it was how often things aren't talked about, especially sexuality or like with women, like, oh no, don't mention that you masturbate. And now you have indie romance and so much is happening on page and it's getting more normalized, because I remember the first romance I read, I think I was in middle school and I didn't realize it was romance, and I thought it was really cool. I honestly didn't even realize that I was writing romance until I was like a few books into writing and considering publishing, because it was just a story. So I don't understand how many people will yuck the yum of romance.
Well, and I think, it's not, I think a lot of people yuck the yum on romance just when we say we write romance, and then they automatically, and I think we were actually going to cover this later, but they automatically go, oh, I don't read romance. Now never mind the fact that, the movies that they watch and the TV shows that they watch all have at least romantic elements, if not, specific romance.
Some of the longest running TV shows, like look at X-Files and the chemistry between Scully and Mulder. You had
that awesome
Booth and Bones in Bones.
Yeah.
I mean,
who is it? Lucifer?
Yeah. I mean, that is what builds on. I think so many people, like, they love that feeling. And I mean, who doesn't love, even if you've gotten your heart broken, and I think we all have, because you have to learn from those mistakes. It's part of life.
Well, and even in like broad sweeping, like, sci-fi opera or things like that kind of movies, the romantic element is what humanizes it. It's what it brings down to something that we can relate to and we can hope for and we can, get behind, no matter whether you're on, the side of the rebels or the side of the Imperials, it's the romance that hits it home for you, I think. So yay, romance.
Absolutely. I don't know. I still think Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson got it on.
Sherlock Holmes looks like Robert Downey Jr. Absolutely.
Oh, see, Benjamin Cumberbatch.
I
don't know if I'm saying his name right, but that is my that is my Sherlock, and it's very much. I don't know. Maybe it's just me being hopeful, but I romanticize many things. And it's fun.
So that said, I watched, I know it won awards, that La La Land. And when I first watched La La Land, I was so angry. Spoiler alert, they don't end up together. And then my daughter watched it in band, and she's like, yeah, my mom doesn't like this story, doesn't like this movie. And I'm like, because as a romance author, you can't have two people together through the entire, movie, and then they don't end up together. So I was just morally offended on behalf of all romance.
And look at how miscategorized romance is, because Nicholas Sparks is so often thought of as a romance author. But
he'll be the first to tell you he does not write romance.
But is that because he doesn't want to be associated with, those icky romance authors?
I mean, because it's anything of his that I've read or the movies that I've watched, he needs to end it sooner so they get their happy for now, but it always goes to like the you're gonna make you cry. And just like Jojo Moyes with Me Before You, my gosh, that
Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, that's that's the kicker, and that starts in high school. I mean,
that being taught is a romance, or like is probably starts the whole like misconception.
Right. And then, well, I think taught it was a romance, and then pushing it in the kid's head that they're that at that age. I mean, it's just, I think
that's how you show your love.
Yeah,
or something.
Absolutely. It's a mind screw.
I actually, because I substitute teach, I actually had that conversation with a couple of middle school girls because they had gone to the library and they came back and I was like, oh, what book did you get? And I think it was a Nicholas Sparks or something like that. And they're like, oh, it's so romantic. And I'm like, no, it's not. And I got very specific about what the definition of romance is. And I said they may have romantic elements, but if they don't end up together alive, then it's not a romance. And they were just like, oh.
Strive for better, girls, and don't have sex with any billionaire because you will get pregnant.
Or mafia boss.
But those billionaires, for all that money, they don't have a condom.
Or just didn't get like a snip or something. Yeah.
But only if you're a virgin. That's when you're going to get pregnant.
The first time.
Yeah.
And they always come multiple times.
Yeah.
And they always know where their clits are. I'm always amazed. I've had experience with people looking for the doorbell to keep poking. I mean,
it's not that small.
That is one thing with sci-fi romance that I enjoy. It's like the alien that's never had sex with the, human before. And they're like, what is this little thing? And I'm like, this is why sci-fi, because they just go straight for it and they're really interested.
What is this little thing that I'm going to stick my two huge alien penises in?
When in real life, sometimes the man is like, oh, I'm willfully blind. Like, what is like...
Is this it? That's my kneecap.
So last week I got into like the short alien romances, and I got on a bend where the drinking of the breast milk was like the big sign of hot, and she was so sexy, and and I'm just like, I'm no kids, but I don't think any of my friends, when they were breastfeeding, that was like really a hot time for them. And oh, Ava has a story.
No, I don't. I wouldn't say it was hot, like that was for the kid, but okay. I think there was like an innate sensuality with it, and I'm not saying like I got off on breastfeeding, but they're full, they're kind of fulfilling their destiny, and there was something just kind of magical and beautiful about that, and not necessarily in a maternal way. Maybe I'm just a freak, but I was like this, and maybe it was just because like they're full and now they're not being so full, and that was a release that maybe I misinterpreted it, but it was like, this feels good.
No, I can see that because my breast never looked better than when I was breastfeeding.
Oh yeah.
Do you have pictures?
So
God,
I don't know if I have like.
Well, I mean like in clothes. Okay.
No. I was like, oh, you gotta get pictures of these. They're gorgeous.
But yeah,
honey, come look.
I always need research.
I feel like it killed all the sensation of my nipples, and that just sort of made me like salty over. It was never really. And then I don't know, like it always was weird. It's like latch onto the boob. I'd never.
There's also something very like, I'm just a cow.
Well,
Oh, God,
so after I did the aliens, then I went into like the forbidden stepbrother, stepfather, adopted, foster father thing, and
male or
no,
like
these were all male female, but of course the females were always just turned 18,
yes.
like what, and the one
and he didn't desire her a moment before then, right?
Well, he had the last 2 years once she started, but there was one where it was a farmer and he had like the foster daughter, and I don't know if this is a medical condition, but she has milk coming out and she has to wear pads. So to help her, because she was so in pain, he started drinking from her.
I was going to say, did he milk her?
Yes. And I mean, but like I couldn't keep. I can't.
Apparently, for my face, that's an ick.
Well, it was just so, and I guess as a farm girl, but I mean, it was just sort of like, like set out like in a farm setting, like they're in the barn, and I'm like, I'm like, this is not this,
Okay.
That's not hot.
Well, from someone who grew up on a farm, yeah, barn sex, it's not what it's cracked up to be.
Like the straw would get everywhere. Kind of like sex on the beach. I'm like, the sand would get everywhere.
I was so disappointed. Because I'm but that was like, your goal on spring break is sex on the beach. Yeah. Sand everywhere, and it rubs your knees raw. Well, my knees and my shins, I came back with like
now we know who was on top.
Well, I mean,
I am an alpha.
I just need to walk across the beach to get sand everywhere. That was as much experimentation as I ever needed.
I'm picturing Cindy walking like this and sand's just like floating.
Well, I don't know how to walk on sand because I would like kick it up and it would be like butt level. So like, I don't know. I don't know. I just figured I sunk in. I don't know.
But yeah, that's kind of been my, like, that was probably my yick, was the breastfeeding, like, and then, but like tying to the farm, the barn, and, and that was weird.
But then again, it might have been your ick and apparently my ick, but, as authors, there's always that like, oh, well, I've written this particular position 100 times. What am I going to do that's kind of new?
Well, this book was number 14 in the in the Kindle Free Store, so yeah.
They hit something.
Yeah.
So good for them.
I have read a few books where it's it's like she'll sleep with like the father and the son not at the same time, or like the step. And what always draws to me is like, wouldn't you be comparing? Like if that was me, I'd be like, you got that move from your dad, or oh, that's weird, your dad does the same thing, and then that would totally kill the vibe. And that's not the point of the reading, but that is where my mind goes. I mean, the books were still good and they weren't quite a yick, but I just know if I was in that situation, I would ruin it by being weird.
So that's why what we read is different. What we like to read and enjoy reading is different than what we would like enjoy personally.
I'm not big in personally or reading. I'm not big into the whole daddy little girl thing. That's not my thing. And I hate
demeaning. I think it's demeaning.
Well, I'm just like, I don't get it. And then that always brings in the word I hate most, naughty, because it's like, if somebody ever asks me if I'm naughty, I'm probably going to smack them, because it's like, no, I'm not 7, or I'm not a kitten, but I'm not into the whole daddy thing. And that's hugely popular, hugely.
Well, and again, I'm okay if it's male. Like, I think that's hot.
With a bear.
But male, female, then it gets into she's a grown-ass woman. We're not, so. And then that's where I think it's because, like, don't ever talk to me like that.
See, yeah, I agree.
Well, what, a reader lives 1,000 lives, or, I mean, more so than that, because I think if you're an avid reader, it would be so easy to rack up
right?
so many more than 1,000 books.
All right. Do we need to be saying goodbye?
We do need to be saying goodbye. We are reaching the end of our time. So thank you for discussing not yucking yums with the Hoosier Trips.
And some yucks.
Yeah. And learning a little bit of tidbits that is TMI, because that's what we do.
It's where we go.
Until next time.
All right.